Hi everyone, welcome back to another social skills video. My name's Sarah, and today we're going to be talking about the very relevant, very practical topic of how to carry a conversation. How do you start a conversation? How do you keep it going? What do you do when you want to talk to somebody? So let's just go ahead and start out assuming that in this scenario, you're trying to talk to people that you've never met before, new people, you're trying to strike up a new conversation with someone that you don't really know. Maybe it's someone that you even see at work, but you've never really gotten to know. So where do you even begin? A piece of advice that I like to give is use the environment or your current activity, use whatever you are currently involved with in order to sort of prompt the conversation forward and give you some sort of theme or topic that you can start talking about. So let's go ahead and come up with an example. Let's say that you are trying to get out there, you're trying to be social, and you join an archery club. How do you talk to people around you? Well, you can always just use what you're doing as the topic of conversation. You could say something like, so is anyone else here new or doing it for the first time, or am I going to make a complete fool out of myself? You can kind of just like an icebreaker, throw it around. Or let's say you go to a volunteer event as a means to try and get to know people better. You can ask, have you ever done this before? This is my first time here. I'm trying to be more social. I'm trying to get out there. So I thought it'd be fun to do something like this. You can use what you're doing to ask the other person or to sort of engage that first topic. So definitely look to see what is around you. If let's say that you're in the break room at work and there is a coworker there and you really haven't ever spoken to them, you've kind of passed but never said anything, you could always say, oh, so you bring anything nice for lunch today? So if you think about it, just try and put yourself in the moment and try and see what is around you that you can use as a way to just take off the conversation. And I've gone over these in past videos, but these are just really easy conversation topics, always upcoming plans. I feel like that's one of the easiest things that you can ask somebody because it gives you, it kind of guarantees that you might get a response from them. So just something as simple as, so do you have anything fun planned for this weekend? And then depending on their response, you can then use their response as a way to keep talking about whatever subject they bring up. But also kind of knowing who you're talking to really, really helps. If you are talking to someone and you know they're a huge gamer, you could say, oh, have you played anything fun recently? Got any good games you could recommend to me? So these are just kind of nice, neutral topics that most anyone, I think, would be able to answer depending on what they are interested in. And then therefore, you can take their answer and use that as a way to continue either asking about the subject or chiming in with your own opinions. So continuing this section, you want to use questions to find out more about the other person. So you are not using questions as the basis of the conversation. You don't want to just line up methodically, okay, I'm going to ask this, 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 this. You want to ask these questions to try and find out something that you can find a response that you like or you have an interest in, and then go from there. So if you were asking somebody, did you do anything fun this past weekend? Let's say it's Monday and you ask somebody at work this and they say, yeah, not really. I kind of just stayed home and I had dinner and I watched Netflix. You could say, oh, okay, what shows are you currently watching? I love the streaming platforms and I'm watching a variety of things. Are you watching anything fun? So that's me taking something that they've said and expanding on it to hopefully get a little bit more out of them. And be relevant to what's going on as well. You don't necessarily want to be so random when you're trying to talk to people. We're in February now. You wouldn't necessarily say, oh, so what do you do over Christmas? It's like not really that relevant. It's kind of past. So just try and stay present in the moment, present within a time frame that makes sense, and don't go too far back and too far down the future. You don't want it to say, where do you see yourself in 10 years, that sort of thing. That's okay if you are at a job interview, not so okay for casual conversation. So some practical techniques that you can start keeping in mind and working on is you want to try and find a shared interest or something that you can learn more about. And that is the purpose of asking questions. You want to look for something that you would be able to ask questions about if you guys have nothing in common. if I'm talking to someone and I meet them, let's say I'm at a volunteer event and I meet someone and start talking about what do you do in between work and sleep and everything in between. Oh, I'm huge into metal. I like metal music. I don't know anything about metal music, but I could say, oh, I've never listened to metal before. In my mind, I have this idea of it being really scary and people screaming. Is that accurate? Or is there some introductory metal you could introduce me to? I might not necessarily know what I'm talking about, but I can find that and I can show a genuine interest in wanting to know more about it. And sometimes it's nice to be able to give the other person an opportunity to talk about something that they like too, and then have someone who seems genuinely interested in the conversation that they can talk to. Reference things that you've learned about them. This is a really nice thing to show people that you have paid attention to what they've said, that things in their life are important to you. If you find out someone's gotten a new puppy and you see them in a couple weeks, you could just say, oh, how's the new puppy going? Is everything going well? It's something that you've learned about them that you're referencing in future interactions to just acknowledge that, hey, I was actually lucid and paying attention to you during our conversation. And I always stress this in my videos, but be prepared to talk about yourself as well, because if you are talking to someone and you ask these questions and you're trying to figure out a little bit more about them, they are prone to do the same to you too. So a list of topics that I think is a really great exercise for anyone to work on. And you can screenshot this section if you want and answer these in your own time. But these are the sort of things that I think will naturally come up over time, and people will want to know about you in order to have a better idea of the kind of person you are. And it's a really healthy, beneficial thing to be able to have a great idea, a strong idea about the kind of person you are when you are talking to somebody else, or when you're trying to be more social and you're trying to make more friends. It's great if you are really comfortable with who you are and you know the things that you are interested in, you know the things that you're working on, you are able to talk about your current situation and your goals. So this is just a really great homework assignment for anyone that thinks they might need a little bit of practice talking about themselves. I'd say just take a copy of this and write down some lines and turn it in next week. Okay, so our things to avoid section, because there's always a things to avoid section. You don't want to interrogate people. You don't want to make someone feel like they are in a police lineup having to give you every single detail of their life. This can go as far as you don't want to just rattle off question after question after question. You also don't want to get too personal, so you don't want to any question that makes it seem like you are trying to hack their password, like you were trying to get their security questions. Avoid those. You don't need to know about personal details. You don't need to know about things that wouldn't naturally come up if you know the person really well. But so just try and avoid interrogating when you are trying to converse with someone. There is a limit to how many questions you should be asking. Again, the whole idea of asking things like, oh, what are you doing this weekend? Or have you ever done something like this before? How are you enjoying this change in weather we're having? Those are in order to help move the conversation along. It's not supposed to be the basis of the conversation. Hypothetical questions, avoid these at all costs. They're not fun for the other person, and I think when you have people who are trying to fill in empty space in a conversation, they think, okay, well, let me just ask a hypothetical question, something that's like, oh, well, so if you could be rather doing this, or you could be digging a hole to the bottom of the earth, what would you rather be doing? Things like that, I'd say avoid, because they're not really beneficial to you or the other person. They're sort of just a gimmicky way to force someone's hand and force someone to talk, but it's not really a great way to have a conversation. So avoid those if you can. Failing to acknowledge what someone has said. This is another big no-no. You don't want to be talking to someone and they respond to you, oh, okay, well, I might go rock climbing this weekend and then probably just hang out for, the rest of the weekend. How about you? And you say, oh, yeah, well, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to sit around and probably garden. And you had a great opportunity. They said, I'm going rock climbing this weekend. And then you could say, oh, rock climbing, that's awesome. Does that take a lot of upper body strength? I've heard it's very, very difficult. I should probably get into some active sport like that. Now, I'm not really doing anything this weekend, though, myself. So you acknowledge what they said. You can still answer the question. But if there is like an interesting tidbit that seems like it's going to be a great way to continue one topic, go ahead and pursue that, because a conversation should not be completely planned. It's okay for you to have like an end goal or something that you're working towards, or you have something in mind leading up to something else you'd like to ask. But if opportunities present themselves, don't walk past them. Just alter your planned path and work those into it, because you're going to have a more natural, genuine moment if you take time to focus on things that you've been told. And last, debating. Do not try to start debates. Don't, as a prompt, ask somebody, so are you a fan of nuclear or green energy? With the intention of wanting to tell them, well, here's why you're wrong, and this is why. Don't do that. It's a huge turnoff, and it is very exhausting, especially with people who don't know you. It's going to be a red flag, and they may not avoid you. They may avoid you in the future. They may not want to talk to you again. There are always exceptions to the rules. I'm sure there's someone out there who their heart will skip a beat if you start a debate with them. But let's just go ahead and assume it is not the best way to start a conversation with someone that you don't know very well or that you're trying to get to know. You can have those little moments for later. There will be moments for friendly debating, but up front, don't start that with someone. It just makes you look cocky and a know-it-all, and no one likes those things. So just things to keep in mind in the background while you're working on this is usually breaking the ice with someone is the hardest part of a conversation. Usually going up to someone and finding that the courage to get through the first initial stage of, all right, I'm going to be the first one to say something. That's usually the hardest part. So if you are kind of anxious about talking to people, about approaching people, just think the hardest part is right at the beginning, and then usually it gets easier. So it's not like it's going to get harder and harder. It's there, and then it's going to get easier. So hopefully that should bring you a little bit more peace of mind when you are thinking about talking to people. And if you have a great icebreaker or one-liner or something that you can use that's effective, that you've found that works for yourself, definitely go for that. Otherwise, if you're stuck, you can go back to the slide about easy conversation topics, and remember using your environment, using the situation around you to sort of give you some ideas about what to say. But once you get past that, it's usually smoother sailing from there. And it's also not your sole responsibility to keep the conversation going. If you are talking to someone and it is like pulling teeth, you just cannot get them to respond to you, can't get them to engage with you, that is not on you. You've done your part, you've tried, and you are not being met halfway. So just wrap it up and say, all right, well, I hope you have a great day. It was nice talking to you, and I'll see you around. And that's it. It's not wasted time. You gave it a shot, and you know that expression, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. You can try. If it lands, it lands. If it doesn't, it's no big deal. But it is not your job to get the other person to talk. So don't think, I'm not doing something right. They're not engaging with me. I can't talk to them. You can only do so much. So don't feel stressed if you've just met someone who's really not really talkative or really not in the mood to talk. It's not because maybe you're necessarily doing something wrong. It may be because they just don't want to talk. And that is why silence is not a bad thing. Silence could be a great barometer as to whether or not this is someone that really has an interest in talking to you or someone that you're just really not going to be able to click with. Don't look at silence as a failure, like a sign that, okay, I've screwed this whole entire thing up. I'm awful at having conversations. Sometimes it's just, and sometimes silence is a natural part of conversations too. You don't always have to be talking all the time, because talking is exhausting and it's work, and it takes muscle and energy. So sometimes having that silence is not a bad thing too. But silence as feedback from the other person might save you some time as to whether or not you want to continue spending energy on someone that really just doesn't want to talk to you. So that is how to carry conversation. I wanted to announce that I have a Discord server for socializing. Really, it's like a laid back place for people to hang out and watch movies occasionally and play games. I have game nights, and we have a book club going on. We have a workout challenge going on. So if you would like to join, it is this little icon right here. I also have a Twitter. I just started my Twitter where I'm just going to be posting these videos, but if you need to get in contact with me, you can send me a DM. And of course, you can schedule a session with me here if you want extra work, just one-on-one, to sort of come up with an individualized game plan for you. So yes, if you do want the Discord server right here, keep this in mind. I run a very tight ship. It is I'm very strict with who is in there because there are so many opportunities for people to be mean and nasty and toxic, and this is not that place. So you will have an interview with me. It's kind of just like a members only club. And if you're a great fit, then welcome aboard. If you're not a great fit, I recommend watching this video right here and seeing if you are guilty of any of the things in this video, and that may be what is holding you back from making friends and whatnot. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. I hope this helped give you some ideas on how to have conversations better, and go ahead and practice it with someone if you have been trying to get out there and meet people and just practice talking more. I want to do a follow-up video to this in text, how to carry conversation in text, because with how heavily text-based things are today, especially in professional work settings or just casual settings with people, there are a lot of different nuances in text versus in person and face-to-face conversations. I think are a little bit easier sometimes just because people seem to give you more of their time, but in text there's a lot more different things to consider. So I will do a follow-up video on this topic, but in text. But yeah, thanks for watching this video, and I will see you next week. Remember, if you have any socializing questions or things that you want expanded upon, let me know so I can maybe do a video in the future. All right, everyone, I'll see you next time. Bye.